What's up? Y'all read the title. Today we're talking about the NBA All-Star Game, more specifically, how we can fix the game itself, going from the selections to the draft to the game, everything in between. I'm starting to get a lot more active, so make sure to subscribe and like the video so I can get myself out there and so you can see more quality content from me because I feel like I'm getting better. And just jumping right into it, we'll talk about the selection process. Now, every year, people feel like players are getting snubbed, so I'm not really going to focus on that because that's kind of a inevitable problem that the NBA is going to face every All-Star game. Is fan bases are going to feel like they got snubbed. Some fan bases are going to feel like some players got in above other players when it should have been the other way around. For example, LaMelo Ball was the number one voted on guard in the East, and he didn't even make the All-Star game. Now, this is obviously something that could be fixed, and the easiest way in my brain to fix it is you make it to where the top two guards in the East and West are automatic locks. That way, the players that the fans want to see most are not snubbed out of the game, like LaMelo Ball. And the top three front court players are also just guaranteed to be in the game no matter what. I feel like this should have been a change a long time ago, and I don't understand why it wouldn't be. Because those are the top 5 players that everyone wants to see play in the All-Star game. So why would there even be a chance for them to get snubbed out of the game? And plus, you got to make those starter spots feel like something because now that we're switching to a tournament format, there's not really a starter role. For example, on Team Kenny, Jalen Brunson was the only player that was a starter that got put on the team. So there's not really a real reason to be a starter, and I think this should be it, is the top 5 players in each conference that the fans voted on automatically get in the game, and that's the importance of being named a starter. There's not too much you can really fix about this. It's kind of a tough issue with the snubs, so I'm just going to kind of move on to the game itself. Now, I think this year the tournament was a very solid idea. I think it has legs, and I think, especially in the first round, it was a lot more competitive and fun to watch than previous All-Star games. I think that the tournament should be what we use moving forward, but there's an issue with playing time. That's the biggest issue. Alperen Sengun in the final got like 30 seconds of playing time because he was put on the bench the whole game and he came in for the very last possession. And obviously that's not fair because he got voted in the game by the fans, by the coaches, by the media. Why would he only be able to play like 10 seconds in the final? That's not fair at all. So I'm proposing, instead of a bench player at all in these tournament games, I think they should split into 5 teams of 5, and those 5 teams, along with the Rising Star team, would make a 6-team bracket, and you would just kind of have it like where 2 teams get a bye and 4 teams go play 2 rounds to go to the finals. Now, there's 3 issues with this 5-team, 5-player change. First off, a maximum score of 40 points for 3 rounds is kind of too much. So I think if you were to do 5 players only, no subs, no bench, you would move the target score from 40 to about 30 or something. That way the game is shorter because you can't have these 5 players out there for super long or else they're going to get winded. They're going to actually get injured, which is something that is not common for the All-Star game at all. And it's what they're actively trying to prevent. So just lowering the score would fix that issue. The next issue, like I previously mentioned, there would be 2 bye weeks or bye games. How do you decide who these 2 who gets to skip a game? Which teams get to skip a game? Well, my simple solution for that is you get the 2 players that were voted on most in their conference. So this year, it would be Nikola Jokic and Giannis Antetokounmpo. These are the 2 players that received the most votes in each conference. So that way the captain role can also be brought forward like the starters would be. And the final issue with the 5-player, 5-team bracket is how do you decide which conference gets the 13 players and which conference gets the 12 players? Well, I think that the easiest way to do this is to compare the wins from each conference against each other. So if the Western Conference teams have 100 wins against the Eastern Conference teams, and the Eastern Conference teams only have 99 wins against the Western Conference teams, the Western Conference teams would get the extra All-Star. This also incentivizes maybe the players that are on the cusp of becoming an All-Star to try harder in these inter-conference games where they would, early in the season, before the All-Star game, be trying super hard to bring more wins to the Eastern Conference so that they could have an extra chance to become an All-Star themselves. And that's all pretty complicated, but to make it even more complicated, now we have to get to the draft. I personally hated the draft this year. I think inside the NBA should not have been given the chance to just draft teams. I think it was stupid the way they did the obviously scripted draft. It was Team World versus Team OGs versus Young Stars. It was not a natural draft at all, and I liked it when the players would draft. So we have 5 teams these players need to go to. That would make it 5 players each team, which is just a starting 5, which makes sense to me. How we would choose who drafts these teams instead of some random media personnel, I think we should do the top guards from each conference get their own team, and the top front court players get their own team. So this would be Nikola Jokic, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and LaMelo Ball all drafting for their own team. Now, this would leave one team open, the 5th team. Who would draft for that team? It'd be tough to give it to another player because that's giving too much power to one conference or whatever, but it's just not even to do that. So I think the NBA loves bringing in their famous personnel like Kevin Hart. I think you give whoever it may be next year, whether it be Kevin Hart again, Kevin Hart would draft this team and he would draft the next player. So it would be Shai, LaMelo, Giannis, Jokic, and whoever Kevin Hart drafts. And those would be the first 5 players drafted. And then it would go in snake order, just going back and forth until all the teams are drafted. So we'll go through what that would look like real quick. So we'll say Giannis goes first because he got the most votes total. It would be Giannis, Jokic, Shai, LaMelo, and then we'll just say Kevin Hart drafts Jason Tatum because he got the next most votes. And then Kevin Hart would draft again, and we'll say he drafts Kevin Durant. And then we'll go in reverse order. So LaMelo Ball drafts, and then Shai drafts, and then Jokic drafts, and then Giannis drafts. And then it goes in order like this. I think it would make the draft storylines more interesting. I think it would make the game storylines more interesting. I think a lot of it could be made more interesting just by this simple change to the draft. I say simple like it's not completely redesigning everything they've done this year. But moving on, the last thing, the most important thing, the aura. One thing this All-Star game was missing, even with King Shai on the court, was aura. You could say that's because LeBron missed. You could say that's because Anthony Edwards missed. But I think it's because the NBA doesn't put enough care into individualizing these All-Star games. Every All-Star game for the past 5 years has kind of meshed together into one sort of mundane All-Star game with the jerseys looking bland and the courts looking bland and there being just overall no defining prints on any of these All-Star games. Starting off with the jerseys, these jerseys have been not the same, but very similar, very basic. They're not individualized at all. Back in 2018, some of my favorite jerseys, they're also simple. They're just black and white, but they have the team logo on the chest. I think that this at least individualizes the players outside of the name and maybe even gives them more reason to try in these games because they're repping their city, they're repping their team, and they just overall don't want to. Why would they want to embarrass their team whenever they're repping for their city? Other things in the design realm the league could change is stuff like the courts. The courts weren't always given a lot of care, but even going back to, I believe, 2019, the Toronto All-Star game, they had at least made the half court the CN Tower, I believe is what it's called. And in New Orleans, they had horns coming out of the center court logo to make it more specific to New Orleans, which I think if you're going to host a game in a city, I think you should pay some homage to the city so that the home court fans are enjoying their time, but also just so that specific All-Star game pokes out in people's memories more. And without a doubt, a lot of people are talking about it. The worst thing this year was the personalities they brought. Kevin Hart trash talking the players while they play and complaining about how the big men don't get in the paint and they're chucking up too many threes. It was not fun to watch. The players weren't enjoying themselves. I wasn't enjoying myself. And then they'd cut to a 30-minute long ad break just to come back so Draymond Green would trash talk the All-Star format, saying the rising stars don't deserve to be here, which is another thing that I just disagree with. I think it's stupid that they would have two people that are just trashing the game and the weekend and just overall being upset with the format and the game is not good for ratings or what the casual fan believes to be the state of the game. If you just keep telling people as the person putting on the game, hey, this sucks, hey, this sucks, hey, this sucks, even if they would normally like it, eventually they're going to be like, oh yeah, I guess it does suck. The players are not the reason that the game was bad. I think the tournament format itself is a really good idea, and I think it has legs, and I think it'll be the future of the All-Star game for sure. I think it has that potential. We should all be patient with this new format, and while they're figuring it out, I think my solutions are just a lot better. So yeah, thanks for tuning into the video. Let me know what you think about these changes. I think that I have solved it, and I'm actually gonna take over Adam Silver's job in about 2 weeks. So I'll see you when I'm commissioner of the league. Leave a comment, let me know what you think. Like the video, subscribe. See ya.